if you're negative and you're not positive, if you don't have a positive perspective or positive mindset, it's very challenging to be productive. Welcome to today's solo podcast. Today's topic is the Boss Bitch's Guide to a Mindset Reset for an Abundantly Rich Life. That's a lot. That's a bold promise that I'm giving you by listening to this podcast. But in this episode, I'm going to be discussing a lot of things. I'll have some stories for you. And also, rich means different things to different people. So rich for me means I am living a life of authenticity. I'm living and owning my power. And I lead every day with an abundant mindset. And there is no scarcity in this brain of mine. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's dying off. Most of it's dead. But in this episode, I'm hoping that you'll keep an open mind to possibly transforming some thoughts, some actions that you might be experiencing in your own life. And this will hopefully bring you a little positivity today, some inspiration, and ultimately guide you, or at least probe and poke at you to potentially look at some things in your life that need some resetting. I know my mindset has played a crucial role in my success with the podcast, my business, my life in general. Mindset affects everything from relationships to the work you put in the world, the work that you're doing. And quite frankly, the whole reason why I'm here, which is your health, right? That's why I started the things that I started, was health and fitness. So we're going to be talking about different techniques, exploring different techniques and strategies to give you some things to consider to help you develop a growth mindset and live your best life. Some things we're going to be talking about today is the power of positive thinking. I know, let's all hug some trees together, but it's going to happen. It's important. The second thing we're going to be talking about is your health and how it's important in your mindset, the correlation between the two of those. The third thing we're going to talk about is time. If you listen to a couple episodes back, Coach Glitter and I talked about planning and making sure that you're time blocking and working with a planner or some kind of organization type tool. And it's because it's fucking important. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about, is time and how to develop, a strategy for prioritizing the things that matter. So that's going to be number 3. Number 4 is overcoming self-doubt and victim mentality. I see a ton of this rampant in the world, but definitely a lot with clients that I work with. And I try to reframe that with our check-ins and really get them understanding that their mindset is huge when it comes to trying to achieve goals. And then the 5th thing we'll talk about is aligning your current work, the things that you do in the world, with your dreams, your hopes, dreams, and goals. And 2 more other important topics are, number 6 is building organic networks and friendships and connecting with other people that can help you do the work that you're meant to do in the world. And last but not least, and probably my favorite of the topic, is your money mindset. And this was a huge one for me in embarking on business ownership, being a boss bitch, all the things, because, your girl didn't come from money. Okay. My parents were broke. So before I tackle all these, and this, strap in, this is probably gonna be a long episode with some stories and some actionable items here. But when we talk about growth mindset, like, what does growth mindset mean? For me, growth mindset means, instead of looking at challenges and being defeated, I embrace them. Rather than avoiding them, I look at them as opportunities for growth and what can I learn. I've been in business for 16 years. I've made my fair share of mistakes, and many a times that I've made those mistakes, I could have easily, hands down, just been like, oh, well, this isn't for me. Business owning isn't for me. I suck. I don't know how to do the things. I could have gotten into like some self-limiting beliefs and some negative self-talk. But when I started to face challenges, I always thought back to, I'm 1,000% capable of overcoming this. Like, people have figured this shit out around me, before me, after me. And a lot of times it was more of just figuring out somebody who's been there that I could either talk to, hire something to help me figure out challenges. Other times, some shitty shit, some shitty shit. You like that? Some shitty shit has happened to me by way of employees maybe not have I hate to use the word, screwed me over, and some things like that, and rather than just be like, everybody is an asshole and, we're all fucked. It's like, it is what it is. What did I learn from this? What am I going to do next time? What am I not going to do next time? So I feel like that is definitely a growth mindset rather than stewing in that. Another thing that contributes to growth mindset is focusing on the process, right? Now, if you're in bodybuilding or a competitor, I should say, or you have ever set a goal, right? It can be really easy to fixate on said outcome, right? Like, the stage, the scale goal, whatever that target is, if you're talking on a business realm or, some personal development things, you're so fixated on the outcome. What I learned early on, actually, what I learned midway through probably my bodybuilding journey was I would enjoy this so much more if I just focused on the process day in, day out, instead of the one day, the 30 seconds that I'm going to be on stage, because that's going to come and go incredibly fast. And I know it's hard to wrap your head around when you're in the thick of it, but I would really notice the small wins along the way and any kind of setbacks that I incurred. And let's be real, when it came to competition, were generally self-inflicted, right? It was like cheating on my diet, not doing all my cardio, things like that, is I was focusing on, okay, what successes did I have today? What things can I say, okay, I checked off all these boxes and we're one day closer to whatever that goal is. Definitely part of the growth mindset, okay? The other thing is cultivating self-awareness. So a lot of times I'm realizing as I move through life what my thought patterns are, my behaviors, what limiting beliefs do I still have, what negative self-talk is still ruminating. I still battle this. It's definitely a quieter voice than it was even a year ago, really, constantly evolving. And honestly, I'm challenging a lot of my old non-serving beliefs. And I'm trying to reframe them, refocus, replace them with more positive, growth-oriented thoughts. Now, a huge piece of this puzzle is journaling. And I know that a lot of people have resistance around journaling and they're like, I don't know what to write. What am I writing about? Is this like, am I telling a story? A lot of times when I find that I'm struggling with something in my life, whether that be a personal, relationship, business, whatever, if I write that down and I journal about it, a lot of times I find the answers to my own quote unquote problems. And I realize by dumping everything into a safe space where just my eyes are the only ones that are going to view these thoughts, and I come back to them. I like to say, like, I like to let my brain take a dump on paper, just brain dump it all down. It can make zero sense. You can feel like an absolute asshole with the things that you're going to say. You can feel selfish. You can feel all the things that you're afraid to maybe tell somebody else. Come back, revisit that when you're not in that heightened emotional state. Read that and really see some things that you didn't see at the time of dumping that stuff down. Okay. Very, very helpful with growth mindset. But you have to be able to call yourself out on some shit, right? Like, that's very important, which leads me to the next thing, which is seeking feedback. So when, a lot of times when I'm going through this process, if I'm stuck and I know that I'm not in a growth mindset, I'm more of like a just Debbie Downer, downward spiral. I'm limiting my mindset, my beliefs, and just really second guessing myself. So I'll seek feedback from my friends, my closest friends who I know are going to call me on my shit. And this gives me an opportunity to be open-minded to the things that they say, be, open to constructive criticism. And I know that my best friends love me dearly and they are looking for my best interest. They're looking out for my best interest. And sometimes we have varying opinions. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to agree with everything they're saying, but I know that they have my best interest in mind. So when they're giving me feedback, I try not to take that personally. Try not to take it personally and say, and really thank them for bringing awareness to certain things that I might not be seeing, right? My blind spots. Another key piece of growth mindset is embrace lifelong learning. This is something I am very, very adamant about. I wish I could devote even more time to learning, if I'm being honest, but I am continuously learning. I'm seeking out opportunities to grow, to enhance my knowledge with certain skills, certain topics. I'm obsessed with podcasts such as this you're listening to, right? Reading books, taking courses, putting myself in new experiences that scare the shit out of me. Okay. If you listen to my After Dark episode where I talked about going to a swingers party, that's fucking terrifying. If you would have told me that I was going to be doing that even 2 years ago, I would have laughed, LOL'd so hard in your face. I would have been like, okay, Betty, you're fucking crazy. And it has been transformative, so I'm not saying you need to go to a swingers party to have a growth mindset. However, in my experience, engaging in scary things that I'm very curious about and giving myself these experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise has really helped me in my growth mindset in terms of just knowing that what's the worst thing that'll happen? Okay, great. Let's go. And then also practicing resilience. So again, kind of going back to the first thing is embracing challenges. Is resilience for me is looking at my setbacks as just temporary. And again, learning opportunities and knowing what are my strengths and how can I get myself out of a situation that's maybe not ideal or something's happened and I have to really spin it. Because here's how I view things. I ain't got time to be sad or mad. I don't have time for that, right? Life is too precious. It's the only one that you get, at least that's how I view it. And so I don't have time to allow negative experiences, shitty situations, pity parties for myself to take up mental real estate for longer than they need to. And when they're there and I'm ruminating on them, I need to go, okay, what's the lesson? What is not serving me here? And next, right? So that is very, very important for a growth mindset. The more that you stew on things and keep ruminating on shit, it's going to bring you down. Okay. And then this last one is a little bit harder as far as growth mindset goes, at least for me. But it is something that I have worked. Oh, that's not the last one. Sorry. Second to the last one. But it is something that I've worked tremendously on because I feel like with my particular situation growing up, this wasn't something that was we didn't talk about a lot of this stuff, right? Being mindful. And part of that is the journaling process, right? Being present, being focused, being present in the present moment. It is very stress relieving to be able to practice mindfulness. It's easier said than done, at least that I've noticed. But the more that you practice it, the easier and the better that it gets, much like everything else in this world, right? So it does help with that growth mindset is being very, very mindful of all of the things that are ruminating through your mind, dumping them onto paper, journaling, talking to somebody about them, and moving past them is going to help you in this growth mindset. Another thing with growth mindset, and I feel like actually this might be one of the most important, that maybe the top 3, is surrounding yourself with like-minded, positive people. So people who are going to bring you up, they're going to encourage you, they're going to call you out on your bullshit, your blind spots. I have 4 best friends. I know each of them has a superpower. And when I want some honest, open feedback or constructive criticism, I know exactly which one I need to go to get the most honest one out of whatever area I'm struggling with. So seeking out people Maybe mentors. I've hired mentors for this. You guys know I'm big on hiring coaches when I'm trying to figure out something that I have no knowledge of. I would rather have the expedited version. So I will pay the person that knows the things that I want to know, or at least I want to be, well versed in. So seeking out mentors, role models, coaches, friends, people who inspire you, and those that are going to offer you some kind of, again, feedback, guidance, support in whatever it is that you're looking to grow in. And that's going to also be huge and very, very instrumental in cultivating a growth mindset. So it takes time, it takes practice. It's not something I was born with. I was very, very pessimistic, negative, fear-based, in my early 20s before I started my business. And eventually I started realizing when I would do scary shit and like the world didn't fall apart, everything was okay. And even if it didn't turn out perfect, right? So you have to start small because it's going to be easier for you. I mean, you can start big, but the fear factor that it might take in order to take the bigger steps might be much greater. And so starting small is going to be easier, right? So starting small, baby steps, be persistent, dedicated to it, knowing that if you've been thinking one way your whole life, it's not going to just change overnight. Okay. So that is really how I view a growth mindset, and something that I'm very, very passionate about and adamant about when I'm working with clients, even on an online capacity. And I know it's a lot of times a one-sided conversation, which those of you who are my athletes and my clients, I love you. And you know that I'm constantly, not necessarily you don't need it every check-in, but there's some check-ins when you're there and you're just like, stress is high, there's maybe some negative self-talk and things like that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. If you're team boss bitch, we don't do that, right? So moving on, step number one, or I should say thing to consider number one, is the incredible power of positive thinking. Your thoughts are what you are stuck with all day long. And if it is a sewer in there, your life is going to fucking suck. Okay. So the things that you're thinking have a significant impact on your life, the actions that you take. It shapes reality, the choices that you make, the choices that you don't make, the words that you speak, the words that you don't speak, all start with your brain. Okay. So it's very important that you are constantly feeding that. And it is a garden of positivity, and not to be confused with being ignorant or just living in a fantasy world. Okay. Because I'm very realistic, but it is very important to cultivate that positive mindset, being optimistic, including, and this includes, you're going to have an increased capability for being resilient. It's going to open you up to being more creative and honestly productive. If I'm in a negative spiral, let me tell you, this happens to me. Your girl is not positive Pollyanna, all right? Coach Glitter, she's positive Pollyanna like 90% of the time, all right? For myself, it's a couple times a month. It's usually around my period where I'm like, the world is coming to an end. Everybody hates me. Nobody loves the boss bitch. And then my period comes and I'm like, what's happening? But I still use that opportunity to journal when I'm having those moments. So I can go back and be like, wow, that was purely an emotional meltdown. Okay. But it's important for you to get that stuff out. It helps clear the cobwebs and will also help you be more creative and productive. Cultivating a positive and optimistic mindset is huge. It's huge for your mental well-being, your physical well-being, and honestly, your quality of life. Like I said, you do not want to be living in a shit show of negativity in your brain all the time. That can wear you down. That can cause stress. It could cause health problems. But let's talk about the things that being more optimistic and positive can bring to the table. So we already talked about increased resiliency. It helps for me, at least in the face of adversity. So when I'm dealing with some bullshit, I know like, okay, because I've cultivated a positive mindset, a growth mindset, this has helped me become more resilient when shit hits the fan, when things go wrong, when people don't do what you want them to do. Okay. When you can't control the actions and the words of others, which is a lot of the frustration that many of us have in our life, right? So this, when you have increased resiliency, you can bounce back from things that are frustrating, setbacks, any kinds of challenges, and you handle them with greater ease. I've experienced this so many times in my life. And I do feel like, and when I was going through this back in the time, I would have never known that this was for a grand purpose. But I always go back to the story of like, yo, I was a mom. I was pregnant when I was 16. I was a mom when I was 17. I got pregnant again. I had 2 kids by the time I was 19 years old, like barely 19. I was turning 19 and I just had Alicia, like we're like 4 days apart. So it's like, I look at that and I encourage you and I urge you to think like back to a time when you dealt with something that was incredibly challenging. And for me, this is the foundation of where I make most of my decisions, where I'm like, I was literally a child raising 2 children. Now, it's not like I just had babies and I like handed them off to my parents and I went and lived my best life. No. Okay. I raised those 2 solo YOLO. Daddy, baby daddy disappeared when I was 8 months pregnant with Alicia. I did everything by myself and he was never in the picture after that. So everything was by myself and it was figuring things out. And granted, I was dealing with, or I was utilizing public aid, public assistance and things like that, but it was still a motherfucking bitch. Okay. Like nobody was there, like raising my kids for me and doing all the work and waking up in the middle of the night and going to the doctor's appointments. And, one story that I haven't shared, I don't believe, on the podcast was the moment I found out I was pregnant with baby number 2. And this is why I feel like, my resiliency is tough to shake, is because I have dealt with some incredible things that I think, and there's so many possibilities for humans to deal with things that give them increased resiliency. But just imagine being 17 years old and being in beauty school halfway through, actually I was like 3/4 of the way through beauty school, through ROP, which is a program in the high schools that help you get through certain trade schools, and the schools like pay for it or some shit. I don't probably have that wrong, but I was going through ROP through beauty school and I was pregnant throughout the first 3/4 of that, right? Or the first half of that. I had my son. I had a little bit of a break. I went back and I was homeschooled because I was, had a baby, and I was still doing this beauty school program. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, I wasn't like sure if I was pregnant, but like, I was like, my period, I missed my period. I was one of those that like would miss 2 or 3 days of pills and then just like try to take them all together. Well, this instance, I had my son, and that wasn't necessarily the case. I had him, and at about 4 months, him being 4 or 5 months old, I started developing these really, really bad stomach pains, and it lasted for longer than it should have, but probably like from the time he was born, but it got really, really bad by the time he was like 4 or 5 months old. Long story short, my gallbladder was on the brink of explosion. So I am hospitalized for 7 days because they're like, you have hundreds of gallstones. They're like lodged, and we have to bring the infection down because you were like on the brink of explosion and possibly death. Okay. So they hospitalized me. I have to recruit like my parents and my grandma and everything to like help with the tiny little baby kid that I just had. And while I was in the hospital, your girl wasn't on birth control, right? Because that was the least of my fucking concerns. Well, fast forward, I get released from the hospital and I have sex in between having been to the hospital and my follow-up appointment. And so your girl gets pregnant. I had unprotected sex with baby daddy. Well, I go in with one of my best friends and I'm like, just come with me to Planned Parenthood. I'm pretty sure I'm not pregnant, but I just don't want to go by myself. And I need you to like help me. Like, can you watch the baby while I'm in, in the waiting room while I'm in the room, just getting the results? Cause like back then I was 17, I was almost 18. Like I wasn't going to just like run in and buy like a pregnancy test. I didn't really have the money for that. It sounds terrible. So I go in, I pee in the cup, I sit in the room, and the nurse practitioner comes in or doctor, and she just very nonchalantly, very matter of factly says, okay, your pregnancy test was positive. And I cannot remember anything she said after that. I just remember my ears ringing and my whole body flushed with heat of like, what did you just say? I have a 5-month-old. I have a 5-month-old in the fucking waiting room. What the fuck did you just say? I mean, that's not what I said, but I was certainly thinking that. So the story is just basically to tell you, like, I remember that girl. I remember her sitting in the exam room with the doctor dealing with news of which she was not prepared for, okay? And this is where I was. I was 18. I was now pregnant for a second time. I was only 3/4 of the way through beauty school. I had a, 5-6-month-old in the waiting room. I had zero job. I lived with my parents. I was on all the government assistance you could possibly think of. And I was in a relationship that I knew was not going to be a long, one that was going to suit me forever. I knew I was not going to marry this man. And now I have two children right now, hypothetically. So I was dealing with, I was at a crux of, what do I do here? What do I do? Do I have this baby? Do I not have this baby? And I realized that gets into some controversial topics. And for me, I chose that I was going to follow through and have my second child. So I immediately quit beauty school because back in that time, 27 years ago, when I was attending with my first child, the judgment, the whispers, the ostracization, is that even a word, of me in beauty school once I was pregnant was very, very challenging to deal with. I mean, I had anxiety every day going in because there was older women that would make comments and say things, and then I'd hear things by way of some of my friends in beauty school. And so I just was like, there's no way I can go back to this beauty school and be like, I'm pregnant again. And so I literally quit. So this was a very long-winded story to just basically tell you, when you are dealing with something and you want to go down like a negative mindset and you want to be pessimistic, I think about the shit that I've already done and I'm like, nothing can be harder than that. Okay. Nothing. Okay. Maybe some things, but for me, that was like the lowest of the lows. And it continued for about 5 years after I had my babies. So when they were like 5 and 6, it was standing in the grocery store line with my food stamps and my WIC coupons and having people whisper over my ear about the annoyance that they were going to have to be in line because they had to scan each fucking coupon. It wasn't as advanced as it was now. So it was shit like that. It was asking my sister to come with me to the grocery store so she could help me manage the babies at like some ungodly hour of the night, or have her watch the baby so I could go to the store and not be humiliated using my welfare coupons to buy my groceries, right? Because it was highly frowned upon. And I was embarrassed. I was really, really embarrassed by that. So it allowed me to just realize, like, if I can do that shit, like, I can pretty much fucking take anybody's bullshit. That's why, like, people are like, oh, you're not worried about like people think about you or this or that. And I'm like, no, I'm not, quite frankly, because they don't have to live my life, and their opinions, while I value the opinions of the people that matter to me, the ones that don't, I don't fucking care. And I really hope that you can also embody that. It's like, there's so many women that are scared to share their journey on social media, or afraid to speak their mind or tell their spouse how they're feeling, or stand up to their boss, or stand up to a coworker that's kind of pushing them around. And I'm like, why the fuck? Just say what you need to say. And it doesn't need to be boss bitch style, like straightforward and direct, but figure out a way to speak your mind and know that the more that you do it, the easier it gets. Okay. So some other things that help with positive thinking is I know this is kind of shifting gears a little bit, but greater creativity. So I find that when I'm in a negative mindset or a negative mind spiral, it's really hard for me to be creative. And so I know that there are things that I need to do self-care wise. If I get into that funk, like I was talking about, usually a couple times during the month on my period, it's like a lot of journaling. It's making sure that I'm surrounding myself with people that are going to be like, okay, bitch, like, what's your problem? Pull your head out of your ass. And this it helps me come up with better solutions to any problems I might be having, new ideas. I've been in a little bit of a funk with talking about super fitnessy things, not because, I do it every day, y'all. Like I train, not every day, but I train, I eat, I eat to really expedite my fitness lifestyle 80% of the time. 20% of the time I fuck off and have a good time because life, and I'm not competing anymore. But there's a point where I was like, I need to talk about other stuff. And like today's podcast is one of those other stuffs type of ideas. Okay. Another reason why positive thinking is important is it helps you be productive. If you're negative and you're not positive, if you don't have a positive perspective or positive mindset, it's very challenging to be productive. Like, I don't know about you, but when I get into a funk and I'm being negative, it's not easy for me to be productive or efficient or effective in anything that I'm doing. It's definitely a challenge. And so for me, when I'm more positive, it's easier to approach tasks with, enthusiasm, excitement, energy. And it doesn't need to be like at a high level all the time, but it's got to be more than the negative mindset that's going to be pulling you down and keeping you stuck from being productive. So positivity is definitely going to help with bringing in a little bit more motivation, which is a challenge for us, right? A lot of people are like, I don't know how to be motivated. How do you motivate yourself? I don't give myself a chance. I don't give myself a chance to argue with myself unless I'm having a day where I'm like, I need a mental health day. And let me tell you, sometimes that happens and you need to do that, but it does help with motivation and focus if you have a positive mindset. Next is going to be an obvious one, right? The reason why y'all are probably here listening to me is improved physical health. So when you have a positive mindset and you're not bringing yourself down, and I think a lot of times the scale can do this with some people in the morning, right? They wake up, and I speak from experience and get on the scale. It's not what you want to see. Then your day goes to shit and you have more of a negative mindset. You're kind of pissed off a little bit more about dumb shit. And so I have no answer for you on that one other than you have to detach your mind from the scale reflecting a number back at you and realizing it's just your body's relationship to gravity and it means nothing about you as a person. Okay. But improving your physical health is going to give you more positive outlook. I mean, how many of you can say like you work out and then you have a shitty attitude? Not many, probably. Most of the time, after a workout, even if you went in not wanting to do it, because let me be honest with you, a lot of times I'm not really like, woohoo, like crawling out of my skin, excited to go to the gym. Like very rarely. It's not that I'm negative about it. I'm just like, it has to be done. It's like brushing my teeth. I'm just going to do it. So why am I going to piss and moan about it? Right. I have zero feelings. I'm neutral. Okay. But if you are working on your health, you're working on your fitness, all those things, this is going to help bring your stress levels down, right? It's going to help you function better. You're going to have more, you're going to have less sick days. You're going to have better immune function. Your health is going to be improved. You're going to feel better overall. You're moving the rust out of the body. Okay. Also, positive mindset equals better relationships. When you have a more positive, glasses half full, optimistic mentality, more opportunity is there for you to have better relationships. You're more likely to attract like-minded, positive people and build stronger, positive relationships. Again, this does not mean you have to be rainbows and sunshine all the time. This is just as an overall how you are overall as a person most of the time, okay? Most of the time, because I'm not positive Pollyanna most of the time. Ask Glitter, she'll tell you. So I have found with my mindset shifts and mindset reset, I guess, if you will, from like where I started many, many moons ago, I found, and especially over the years, that I'm definitely more forgiving and more empathetic with my relationships, more compassionate. I have more compassion, less blaming, more accountability, for myself or, giving accountability to others and just communicating better overall. Really, really helpful. Okay. Now, here are some practical tips for shifting negative self-talk and embracing more of a positive outlook. Okay. Identifying negative self-talk. Write that shit down. Recognize any patterns, triggers, anything that leads to negative self-talk. Number 2, challenge those negative thoughts. Once you've identified it, challenge it with some kind of evidence-based positive affirmations. For example, if you think, I'm not good enough, right? I hear that often. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to compete. I'm too old, whatever. I want you to challenge that thought by saying, I have strengths and abilities that make me a valuable person. If you think you're not good enough for somebody or a specific, role, job title, whatever, repeat to yourself, I have strengths and abilities that make me valuable. Okay. Define what that means for you. For me, I have strengths and abilities that make me valuable that some other person is not going to have. So it doesn't need to be a carbon copy of somebody else's strengths and abilities. I have wicked superpowers that draw you to listen to this podcast, which is being incredibly open, vulnerable, and straightforward. That is my strength. That is my ability. That's what brings value to my audience. I'm not going to deliver you some fluffy ass shit that's not going to be actionable for you to really chew on. I want to push you outside of your comfort zone. So what are your strengths? What are your abilities that bring value? And focus on that, okay? Another tip is practicing self-compassion. So again, me going back to that 17-year-old girl that is sitting in the exam room that just got news that she's pregnant for the second time, there was so many times I wanted to be judgmental of myself, like, how stupid could you be, and all these things. And while I probably did a lot of that back then and a lot of self-loathing, and that was like the height of my introversion, even though I was in high school, it's like, now I look back and I'm like, if that was my best friend, I'd be like, you did it, bitch. Like, you fucking did it. And you did your best. And that's all you could possibly do. Everybody deals with some kind of adversity. There's, people make mistakes, people have flaws. And guess what? It's fucking okay. Okay. Next is surrounding yourself with positivity. Y'all know that positive Pollyanna is in my back pocket at most times. And that is by design, because Miss Amanda Glitters usually can't pull my head out of my ass if I can't do it myself. So that's super important. Other things that are great are making sure that the shit that you're taking in is positive. Are you watching news all day? Are you scrolling the latest groundbreaking fucking content that has to deal with negativity all the time, right? Are you living in other people's messes and dramas and, trying to find out the latest and greatest? It's like, seek out positive, uplifting shit, motivational podcasts, books, social media accounts, people, mentors, friends, and surround yourself with that. Get yourself out of the weeds with just bullshit, okay? Gratitude, make it a habit of writing things down that you're grateful for, right? I know that sounds, again, super woo-woo, but that's a great way to start your journaling. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, just start with gratitude. Gratitude's easy. Instead of starting with the negative shit that's happening in your life, start with the positive and then go from there. Talk about the things that aren't working, right? What is not working for me right now in my life? Boom, make a list, brain dump that in a journal. The next thing is, and this is one thing that I would like to think that I have a really solid footing on, is reframing setbacks as learning opportunities, which is very, very hard for a lot of people. They just fold and they quit. And I'm like, nope, that's just one way this shit didn't fucking work. So let's figure out another way. Okay. So reframing them as learning opportunities has been huge for me. And always, 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 what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this roadblock, this setback, this failure, if you will, to improve? And that's what I do. That's how I've run my business for 16 years, is I just don't fold over and, decide to just, oh, this didn't fucking work, so it's never going to work. Okay. And then next and lastly is taking care of your physical health, which I've already talked about, but I'm going to keep talking about throughout this podcast because it's super important, right? Exercising, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, managing stress, physical well-being is so very tied to your mental well-being. If you've listened to me long enough, you know how much I stress the importance of exercise with my personal mental health and well-being and battling depression. And there's smarter people out there and more educated humans in this realm when it comes to physical well-being linked very closely to your mental well-being. So I urge you, if you are struggling with your mental well-being in terms of managing stress and things like that, and even, some forms of mild depression, that physical health is incredibly important. It's going to make you feel so much better. I promise you that. Okay. So moving on. Next is Our physical health. Our physical health can impact our mental well-being and vice versa. Again, we just talked about that. So self-care, exercise, nutrition, all of that, positive mindset. I want to dive a little deeper here. So number one, self-care. Take time for yourself. Okay. You are the person you spend the most time with. Value that fucking shit. When people tell me I don't have time to, take a bath. I don't have time to go to therapy. I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to go get a pedicure or any of the things I enjoy, a massage, whatever. Make fucking time. Okay. Life's too short. Prioritize you because you are the only person you spend the most time with. Repeat after me. Okay. Other things to include: reading a book, taking a walk out in nature. Make it part of your routine. I build that shit in. Okay. Sometimes I'm kicking and screaming because I'm like, I'm busy. I ain't got time for that. But you better believe it. I'm going to make time for journaling. I'm going to make time for therapy, bath, exercise, all the things that I know fill up my cup as it's depleting from the normal day-to-day shit that you do every single day. We talked about exercise. Numerous, way too many benefits for me to list here, okay? Numerous physical and mental health benefits: reducing stress, improving mood, boosting energy levels, libido, strength, mobility, all the things, right? All these things are going to help improve not only your physical health, but your mental health. The most important piece of this is you got to do something that you enjoy, right? Make it a part of your regular routine. Simple shit can do wonders. On days when I'm having an off day, or it's not a scheduled day for me to go to the gym, I still like to get out and move my body somehow, some way. A walk out in nature, a walk around the block, a walk on my treadmill, something just to move my body. And then the last piece of this is nutrition. So eating well for your body. So focusing on whole foods. That's what we talk about all the time. Fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats, minimizing processed sugary shit, fried stuff, anything that's going to bog your body down and lead to any kind of like mood swings or energy crashes. Minimize that. We're not talking like you have to be 100% organic, free range chicken, but like, don't be pumping a bunch of bullshit into your body and expect your brain to not follow suit and feel like bullshit too, okay? Because that's going to happen. So some tips to prioritize is, like I was talking about earlier, scheduling time for self-care, putting it on your calendar, time blocking it, and prioritizing it like you would any other important appointment. Number 2, exercising needs to be a priority. Find ways to make that a staple in your daily routine, even if that's just taking a walk, doing some yoga, moving, stretching, something before or after work. If you're asking my opinion, which I know you are, maybe you're not, but I'm just going to tell you, you're asking my opinion. I say you do that shit before work, because after work gives too many opportunities for other people's agendas to get in your way, like your partners, your kids, your pets, your bosses. And let's just be real, your own self gets in the way a lot of times with that. Like, I'm too tired. I need to do laundry. I need to watch the next episode of The Office or whatever the fucking shit is on TV these days. Okay. So the next tip is meal planning, setting time aside to get prepared with that. Now, it doesn't have to be fancy. Maybe you're ordering from Meal Prep Company, all right? Fit Kitchen here in town is wonderful. Use code Diane10 to save you some cash. But getting that dialed in, not expecting the food that you should be eating to just fall miraculously into your lap. Don't work that way. Well, kind of, if you use Instacart. But that still needs to be done. Plan your food out so you do not rely on DoorDash or running through drive-thru. Okay. Or unhealthy snacks. Snacking is the worst too, by the way. I'm just going to say, like, I love snacks. Don't get me wrong, but they are the worst with, interrupting the flow of like your normal meal times and honestly trapping you into eating way more calories than you should, if your goal is to be healthy and or fit. Okay, next is, and the last one is going to be getting enough sleep, right? I see y'all trying to burn the candle, but it's very, very important, not only for your mindset, your mental health, but also your hormones. So getting enough sleep each night and sticking to a routine as best as you can, because even when you try to play catch up on the weekends, it fucks with your Monday and Tuesday generally. And that's what I find personally and with my clients as well. So Bottom line, prioritize your health. It's essential for maintaining a healthy mindset, okay? Positive mindset. Self-care is super important, exercise and nutrition in your daily routine, and this is going to help you with a mindset reset. Okay, next up we have time appreciation, all right? This is number 3. We're going to talk about how to make the most of your time by prioritizing the things that matter. Set goals and avoiding distractions, because distractions will get in the way of you achieving your goals. Let me tell you. And sometimes this is self-sabotage also with distractions. It's like avoiding the shit that you know you need to do because you don't want to do it, because the thought of tackling the arduous task is just overwhelming. And let me tell you, secret squirrel here. Let me give you a little secret. You just have to get started, right? Getting started is the hardest part. This is where the biggest resistance is going to be with a lot of things. But once you start, you get rolling, you're on a ball and you just start going. Like, let me give you an example. I have a shitload of notes for this podcast and they were very overwhelming. And I'm like, I don't even know where to fucking begin because I mind map this shit and it's just like my thoughts are on fire. And so I had resistance to sitting down and recording. And I'm like, I'm just going to record and the words are just going to come out of my mouth and let's just fucking see what happens. Okay. So hopefully it's good. Okay. But here's some strategies for making the most of your time. All right. We went into this in depth, I feel like, in our Planning Your Boss Bitch Life podcast a couple episodes ago. So make sure to check that out. But I'm going to recap here. The reason why this matters is it's going to help you set goals. And again, like I said, avoid distractions. So 1, prioritize your tasks. Start with the most important task that you need to complete. Do that shit first. It's called eat that frog or eat that elephant. How would you do that? One bite at a time. That's literally what you need to do, is focus on completing the most important tasks before you move on to the less important tasks. For example, I have time blocked Tuesdays now as a solo podcast day. Aren't you guys excited for that? You get to hear me rant some more. And then Wednesdays are time blocked for podcasting with glitter or guests. So I know come hell or high water, that shit's time blocked in. And yes, there are a million fires sitting in my inbox right now, but they're going to just be on simmer until I knock this out, because I was hell-bent on getting this podcast recorded today. And while that is simmering on the back burner, this is the priority. So prioritize your tasks, not by necessarily what you want to do first. I don't agree with that method. There are some gurus that, that they speak highly to that, of like, sometimes you just need to build some anabolic energy and do the things that you want to do first, like check your email and social media and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, because there are things in there that are going to take me down a whole ass fucking spiral. And then I'm going to spend a bunch of stupid money. And so, or I'm going to spend time in someone else's life on Instagram. So I'm here recording this podcast first. Aren't y'all glad? Okay. Second, set clear goals. You need to set specific goals for yourself, short-term and long-term. We've talked about goal setting in prior episodes. Super important, because you need to know where the fuck you're going. You can't just be like, take me to Japan. How do you get there? I don't know. Just get in a car, drive, hopefully get in a boat and maybe land there. That's not how it works. Okay. You need a clear, concise plan on how to get there. Even if you do not know all the steps, you just need to know some of the steps to get started. Next is creating a schedule. Now, these are all things that are going to help you prioritize your time and make the most of it. Okay. Creating a schedule is super important, or a routine that allows you to allocate your time to important tasks, right? Like I talked about, time blocking. So other things, prioritizing those tasks, like working, if you work a solid set schedule, put that in. Exercise, where's that going to fit in? Prioritize that. I'm going to tell you right now is that most of y'all don't want to do that first, right? Unless you're a competitor and you really don't have a choice and you like have locked into a show date. But for those that are just lifestyle, or, you just kind of have like, I want to lose 10 pounds or whatever, prioritizing your workout is going to move you so much further in reaching your goals than just hoping it happens at some point after work or sometime throughout the week, or I don't know when. Fucking schedule that. Like, I'm going to scream in your ear to fucking schedule that shit. It's just not going to happen unless it's written down. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist in real time. So make it exist in real time. Okay. Leave some flexibility. So in my schedule, I have it. I am guilty as charged where I look at my day and I'm like, okay, I'm going to cram 800 things into this day because I don't have any distractions here at home or whatever. And I overwhelm myself, and it's like a game for me, right? I gamify it and I like to check things off of a list. But then what happens is the next day, I'm absolute trash. I am a trash can. My brain is a dumpster fire. And so I have had to not have my eyes bigger than my stomach and kind of spread that shit out and prioritize the things that need to be prioritized on certain days instead of trying to cram it all in one day. Okay. Next, I'm very passionate about this topic if you can't tell, but minimizing distractions. What the fuck is distracting you? Is it your social media? Is it your Instagram? Is it your email notifications? What is pinging, binging, zinging, and dinging? Turn that shit off. I cannot tell you how much anxiety it gives me when I'm sitting next to somebody and their phone is constantly lighting up like a Christmas tree, AKA Coach Glitter. She's immune to it now, but my ADD, OCD, whatever you want to call it, brain sees that. And I immediately want to take care of the problem. And if I did that, I would get nothing done and I would not have a multiple six-figure business right now. Okay. And employing multiple employees that are also making really great money. If I just left my notifications on and that shit was binging and buzzing all day long, I wouldn't do shit. I would be light years behind where I am now with my business and my financial goals. Okay. So it's gonna suck a lot of time and energy out of you. So turning off those notifications. One thing I've gotten a lot better at is just checking emails certain times of the day. So I'm not like always in my inbox unless I'm waiting for something very, very specific. But I try not to check email more than 3 times a day. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm probably at around like 5 to 8 just because of the height of my season with competitors and athletes. But know thyself, okay? I will not be living in my inbox on the weekends. I refuse to do that, okay? So set your boundaries. Learn to say no. Again, like I said, setting boundaries. Saying no, I like to say, I think I say no more than I say yes to things. And that's on purpose. Because if I said yes to all the things, all the opportunities, all of the let's have coffees, let's have lunch, let's have dinners that I was extended, and it's not to be a dick, but if I said yes to all those things, I wouldn't get shit done. And I thoroughly enjoy the work I'm putting into the world. So I'm never like burdened by it has its ins and outs and, days where I'm like not as thrilled to knock off some shit on my to-do list. But for the most part, I'm pretty passionate about what I do and I love what I do. So I know like who I want to prioritize in my life and the time allocated for those things. And I know when and where I'm going to say yes and no. So if you have big goals and you're trying to reset your mindset to be of a growth mindset, you got to say no. You can't be taking on all the responsibilities of like, I see moms doing this all the time where they are, extending themselves way too much to try to be the perfect mom. And I was guilty of this too, right? Where they want to volunteer in the classroom and they want to volunteer to take all the kids home from school and volunteer to bring all the snacks to all the games and do this and do that. And there's just like, oh my gosh, I'm the perfect mom. And it's like, but at the end of the day, they are like, their soul is sucked out of them because they have no me time. And I'm speaking very generally. So if you're like, that's not true, I have me time, great. And if that fills up your cup, great. But if you are like, I'm not getting anywhere, I have some big goals I want to achieve, where am I stuck? You might be saying yes to too many things. Okay. Nextly, with time management stuff is breaking your tasks into manageable chunks. If you have large tasks, you got to break them down. Otherwise, they overwhelm you and you just get stuck and you don't do anything. So if you break them into small manageable chunks, you're going to stay more motivated because you're like, yes, I did this thing. Boom, check it off the list. Okay, what next small thing can I do? Right? So just for example, like when I go into we just finished a launch of the Goddess Body Project. That is a gigantic launch for us. It brings in a lot of revenue, and we get to service a lot of amazing humans. And some of you may be listening here, but to make that launch happen and be successful, the reverse engineering of that process is very intricate. And a lot of times I look at the bigger picture, or I used to with big launches, and I'm like, holy shit, how are we going to make this happen? Because I always go in with like an idea of how many how many clients we want to bring on or a revenue goal or something like that. And that seems very, very huge. And I'm like, okay, the only way I'm going to get there is if I reverse engineer and I just take this one day at a time and I break it into chunks, delegate what I need to delegate to the specific people that I need to delegate to. And I just check in and I make sure that we're chipping away in small, manageable steps. This helps me stay motivated and keeps me from getting overwhelmed. Next is taking breaks. Taking regular breaks are going to help you stay refreshed and focused. I'm also guilty for just trying to work straight through. And for example, it's 2:45 p.m. right now on a Tuesday. I've had one meal at 8 a.m. because I am in a sprint of like working. And I was also gone in Vegas for 4 days, YOLO. But it's hard for me to take breaks. I struggle with this, but I know that I can work pretty solid for about 2.5 hours before my brain starts going into like short circuit mode and smoke starts coming out of my ears. So just know thyself. Some people need shorter breaks to kind of give them that like positive reinforcement of like, okay, I need a little bit of a break. 30 minutes, every 30 minutes you get up, you talk, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, eat a meal, whatever you need to do. But for me, I know myself, 2.5 hours is about my sweet spot. And then I can get up and like take a break and things like that. So taking breaks is super important. And then lastly is use your time wisely. Okay. So there are usually little small pockets of time throughout your day. Like when you're commuting, you're waiting in line, maybe, you take a train or the bus or something like that, some kind of mode of public transportation. I know a lot of my East Coast friends can resonate with that, but those are perfect times for you to do small little tasks that can help you with your growth mindset. And by that, I mean, you can read a book, you can listen to an audiobook, a podcast, a YouTube, something. And this is how I really attribute a lot of my business growth is because when I was living in a different city, and I was personal training at my studio, the drive each way was about 40 minutes. And for some of you, you're like, that's nothing. Well, here in the Valley of California, that feels like a small fucking eternity. So I would download audiobooks and I called my Jeep University because I was just downloading programs or workshops or things like that and listening to and from. And this helped me develop different skills, learn about things that I, was interested in and things like that. So you got to make the most of your time where it makes sense. Maybe you're doing laundry or you're mowing the lawn or cleaning the pool or picking up dog shit. I don't know, whatever. Anytime that you're doing anything in which you have to be, doing one thing, but you can be listening, I say capitalize on that. Number 4, overcoming self-doubt and the victim mentality. Super duper important because negative thought patterns can be very, very difficult to overcome. Trust me, your girl was the queen. I should have got a first place trophy of the negative thought patterns. All right. My parents, they were not the most positive of people. My dad is now because he's 70 and he just doesn't give a fuck, but he just like says whatever. But, I grew up, in a kind of a pessimistic household, I guess, kind of, sort of. I hate to put that on my parents, but, our family was just a lot like that. That was like, they were always ruminating on all the negative shit and not the positive things. And that was always a challenge for me because it always made me feel depressed. And like, my stomach always hurt growing up. And I was like, why is it always hurt? It's because I'm thinking of all this like negative shit. So some strategies that I find have helped for me is reframing negative beliefs. When you notice negative things or things that are coming up for you, I ask myself, like, is that really true? Or is this some fucking dumb story I just made up? Is there evidence? Is this a fact? Right? I'm always like, is this a fact or is this a feeling? That's my thing now. That's my go-to. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. When I want to have a negative perspective on something, or I want to be pissed off about something, or something somebody else does, I'm like, is this a fact or a feeling? Because if it's a feeling, we need to dive into that. If it's a fact, then okay, like you have your right to be pissed off about it or whatever. But something like the feeling or the thought, I'm not good enough. What if you flip that? Like, I'm not good enough, but what if you really are and you're capable of learning and improving just like everyone else? That's what I would say. That's what my go-to would be like. I'm not good enough. I've thought that many times. Yo, when I went to start this podcast, I was like, who the fuck am I to start a podcast? I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills. I don't have the communication skills. I don't talk like an eloquent person with an extended vocabulary of all these big words and facts and like all these things. Like, I'm not good enough for that. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if I am capable of doing this and learning how to do it in a manner that people resonate with? And boom, here we are, over almost 400,000 downloads later. So the second thing is seeking support. And this is something I have zero problems doing, is therapy, talking to people I trust, hiring a coach, a friend. You know, if you have some family members that are reliable for calling you on your shit, that's always also a great thing to add into the mix as far as your bag of tricks. But this is not just for like you dumping and like them listening, although sometimes it can be that, but it's really for you to just gain some different perspective, right? Somebody else giving you a reframing. I will say that like my work with John, I feel like most of my work with John Romanello is him giving me different perspectives of the things that I'm thinking about. And he supports me in that mindset shift and also my steps in changing some of those beliefs. So super, super important, invaluable tool. And when you can work with somebody, they can offer you insights and things that you would have never considered before. Sometimes I go back and I re-listen to my sessions with John because I record them all. And I'm like, holy fucking shit, the writing's on the wall. Why didn't I just see that for myself? And that's because he can look at things differently than I can, because I'm kind of like in the shitstorm. So there's that. Next is practicing self-compassion. Again, treating yourself with kindness, being compassionate about that. We talked about already when you make quote unquote mistakes or you have setbacks or things like that, being gentle with yourself and always reminding yourself that nobody's fucking perfect. Okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has flaws. You know, you may see everybody's white picket fence on social media, but let me tell you, behind those photos, they have their own little issues they're dealing with. Next is, this is probably like my favorite one, which is taking action despite the fear you may be feeling. So fear is normal. It's going to come up. It's going to, kind of kick up those self-limiting beliefs. It's completely normal. It's 1,000% natural. I think I've experienced fear more than I ever have with having a podcast and a business in my entire ass life. Even as a single teenage mom, right? Is putting myself out there and allowing people to make their judgments and just saying like, I don't fucking care anyways, right? So when you recognize that it's normal, it does not have to hold you back. You can feel the fear. This is what I say. Feel the fear and do it anyways, okay? This is going to help you take those steps towards your goals when you're scared and you just don't know if things are going to work out. You got to just do the damn thing. Do the damn thing. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel scary. But much like the first time you got on a bike, most of you probably, scary, terrifying, I don't know if I'm going to fall, all the things. And then once you got used to it, like I'm watching my granddaughter go through this right now. And it's amazing to watch as a grandparent now, because I have a different perspective than when I was a mom. And when I was a mom, I was just like trying to like make sure everything wasn't on fire in my life. But watching my granddaughter learn how to ride a bike has been so rewarding, because I'm like watching her and I'm seeing her compute the things and like, seeing her spatial awareness and everything and being terrified and not knowing how the pedals work and, worrying about turning into a wall and, because she's practicing here in my house. And it's like, now she rips through the house, right? And it's like, if we all just embody that as adults of like, this is going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to know how to do it. It's going to be scary, but I'm going to do it anyways. And it's probably going to be a shitty first draft of whatever that is. It's progress in the right direction. And each time you go back to do it, it gets easier and easier. I think about that a lot too with like posing for competitors. So celebrate the fact that like you did the hard thing and you keep doing the hard thing, and you're just going to be more capable as obstacles come your way. Okay, next we're going to go into aligning your work with your dreams. This is what I'm doing right now. My work is part of my dream mission in my life, which is to inspire, motivate, and push people outside their comfort zones in more ways than one. And it started with fitness and health and nutrition, and it's definitely morphed into communication and relationships and business. So wherever you fall in that spectrum, I hope I'm here to give you the good. Okay. Your work can be a significant source of fulfillment and purpose. Even if you feel like you're in a job where you're just like, this is not really my work or my purpose, you can still get there. That does not have to be the end destination. Let me just tell you that. I thought for a long time with my job in the medical field, which is where I started, like in my career, whatnot, I thought like, this is where I'm going to be forever, right? Want to be a nurse. And it's an admirable job. And I'm sure there's a lot of nurses out here listening, and that might be your passion. So whatever your passion is, it can be a significant source of fulfillment and purpose. So if you're still like, I don't know, I don't really know if this is what I want to do forever, let me give you just some actionable tips here. Okay. Some strategies. One business coach that I worked with early on was your life's work was like an intersection of your skills and what you're passionate about. And I like to think of this as like, or your strengths, I should say, is if you were at a cocktail party or somewhere, chatting with somebody and they are talking to you, what is something that you can't shut the fuck up about? Okay. Like, what are you passionate about? Like, if you get on a topic with something, whether it's, for me, it's health and fitness. And I knew that from early on. Like, people would come to me and they'd flock to me and they'd be like, oh, you read all the magazines. Like, what's the best exercise to tone up my arms or whatever? What should I be eating for this? Or what supplements do you think are good for this? Right. And like, I would be obsessed with like learning all the things, passionate about it. So what are your passions? What are your strengths? And I took off with that. And I was like, I'm going to make this a thing because I fucking love this shit and I could talk about it all day. And I'm still talking about it all these years later. So think about the things that energize you, the skills you enjoy using. This can help you identify potential career paths that are going to align with your values, your interests, and your passions, and something that you can really be excited to lead your life with. And like when your feet hit the floor in the morning, you're like really excited to do the things that you do and like pinch yourself and be like, I get to do this for a living. That's how I feel. So then secondly would be research potential careers when you've identified that passion, right? What can align with that? Look for things that could use your current skills, your current interests, the things that you're passionate about, and also your values and your goals. Like I'm very solid in what my values are. And so when you hear me talking on the podcast, like that comes out, and I'm sure you've already established what some of those are. So next is going to be setting achievable goals. So if you've thought about a potential career path or a career switch, what are some goals that you need to set to help you work towards that, right? I know that can be overwhelming because that can be a large, gigantic goal, and it may seem impossible to tackle. But let me tell you that taking those small, manageable steps is the key. Give yourself a realistic deadline, timeline. Hire somebody to help you be accountable to this, a coach, something, a mentor, and know that you're going to need to take calculated risks, because when you pursue something that is a passion or a dream, a lot of times people around you aren't going to be on board. Okay. My dad was like, when there was a time when I went to college for a brief moment in time because I wanted to be an RN, and my kids were very, very little. I was working 2 jobs, and I decided I wanted to take on the task of going to school to pursue an RN. So I started taking like the prerequisites, right? So I'm in, junior college, and my dad found out, and my dad was like, because at the time I was living on my own. And so I had my own place, and like my kids were, in daycare and stuff. And I was taking like a night class, and I had a babysitter, and everything was figured out. So my parents weren't like helping out with that per se. So my dad was like, why are you going to school? And I'm like, because I want to be a nurse. And he's like, that's going to take you forever, and you need money. You need to just get another job. Okay. So I love my dad dearly, but he came over here to this country when he was 13 years old. And has no formal education. I mean, he went to school for, I think, 5 or 6 months once he came to the US, and his parents were like, sorry, we need you to help bring money to the family. So my dad worked on a dairy, And so for my dad always associated like school with like, you're not going to be making money. So what the fuck are you doing? He didn't see the bigger picture because he didn't understand it, didn't comprehend it. So my point is that people aren't going to always be on board with your dreams and your missions. And I'm not saying like throw everything out, throw the baby out with the bathwater and just like fuck off and like screw your job and just go pursue your dream of being like a, you know, I don't know, an underwater basket weaving teacher. But you need to know that you're going to have to take calculated risks. So it's going to require you to like say, what are the risks? What are the benefits of me doing these things, and making sure that they're in alignment with the other values and goals that you have in your life. But no, you're going to need to step outside your comfort zone. And I cannot stress the importance enough of seeking mentorship or people who have done this before you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can have somebody that's going to give you some support and some guidance in the right direction. So some ways to do that also outside of hiring somebody is attending like networking events in said, profession, professional organizations, some kind of strategy that is going to give you some knowledge in said dream. And then be open to learning new things and adapting your goals as you gain more experience and knowledge, but know that feedback is going to be instrumental for you to keep going in said dream, and be open to that and constructive criticism. So super duper important. Okay, let's go move on to the next one, is building some of these organic networks and friendships, because a lot of these connections will be able to provide support, inspiration, and loads of opportunities for growth. So some of the ways that you can build some authentic relationships for you to mindset reset and switch up your life a little bit here is, again, like I mentioned, attending network events. Social media is huge. Don't be afraid to utilize social media, right? Finding like-minded people and not just absorbing their information, but also interacting with them. That's a huge piece of it. Like when I'm looking for a new guest on a podcast or I want to interview somebody, I don't just want to be like, yo, hey, knock, knock on your DMs. And like, can I interview you for this thing? Like, I want to, be contributory to the conversation that they're having on their social media, their posts and things like that. So I also do this as like a vetting system. Like, would I really want to have you on my podcast? Let me follow you for a little bit. Let me interact with your content. Let me see if this is something that would be of value to my audience. So social media is huge. Another one is volunteering, which I know as we continue to grow in this time-starved economy, it can be tricky, but it is also a great way to meet some like-minded people, make some positive connections, and also some impact in the community too. Then we have clubs, organizations, but ultimately super important to be authentic and genuine when you're trying to build relationships with people. Just be yourself and just be genuinely interested and come with a giving hand. That has been my thing, come with a giving hand always. But most importantly, don't be afraid to like ask questions, but also active listening is a huge piece of that. So that is one of the ways in which you can, or several of the ways in which you can build some authentic relationships. So don't be afraid, like I said, to do that, to reach out, but also follow up and stay in touch, especially if you meet somebody new. Send them a personalized message, send them an email, send them a DM, as you get to know them and warm up to them a little bit, maybe you invite them for coffee or lunch or something like that. I had somebody reach out to me, what was this? Probably about a month ago. And she's local here to us, to my city. And she's like, hey, I know this might be a stretch, but like, can I take you to coffee? We have a gym here locally and we're kind of struggling with some things and I would love to just chat with you. Been listening to the podcast. She might even be listening to this right now. And I was like, you know what? This is something I'm really passionate about right now, is business and empowering women to be in business and own businesses and lead authentically and really own their worth. And so I jumped on a Zoom with her, totally pro bono. Like there was nothing in it for me whatsoever than the joy of just sharing some shit that I've accumulated in my brain over the past 16 years with somebody who's just getting started. I do not have a scarcity mindset. I am not concerned that people are going to steal my business. Like I still am not, it's like, if they were going to steal my business, the business was never mine to keep anyways. That's just kind of my perspective. So got on a Zoom call with her. It ended up being almost an hour and a half. And I just was like, fuck, like, dude, if I were in your shoes, this is what I would do if I had to start over and you have what you've got going on. So don't be afraid. One thing I've learned one of the many things I've learned is the answer is always no unless you ask. Let that sink in, okay? All right. Last but not least, because y'all, I've been talking for way too fucking long, is money mindset. And I probably should have started with this one because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I used to shy away from it. It used to make me nervous or like, oh my God, people are going to think it's a thing, like braggadocious, blah, 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 blah. But it's super important to understand your relationship with money. Not only in fact impacts your financial well-being, but your overall happiness. And I know this is a controversial subject, like money can't buy you happiness. No, but it can buy you some cool ass shit that really just brings joy to your life, okay? And let me tell you, as someone who was poor, broke, on welfare, had nothing, and was literally scraping by 2 jobs and government assistance, now walking into somewhere and being like, I can buy that, not on credit, and no stress, and I own a home, and I, own a nice car, and I have my own shit, and I have a nice savings account, and like all these things feels really good. It does not feel stressful. I do not worry about shit, and it's not necessarily buying my happiness, but it's really alleviating a lot of stress, which for me is worth it. So, abundant mindset around money. This is a tough one because this has a lot to do with, at least in my opinion, the way that you were raised. Okay. So I was raised to think like money is the root of all evil. We will never be rich. We're always broke. We have to grind, to have anything worthy. And so for me, it's more of like, I don't know, but money can be used for positive shit and create positive change in the world, right? Like because I have the means to afford certain things, I'm able to put out a fucking podcast, right? I can pay a podcast producer or editor to make my shit sound good and fancy. Thanks, Clint. And I know, I've afforded a podcast coach that can help me understand how to expand my reach, right? And so it's creating positive change in the world. So that's how I look at my income. It's how can I make a bigger impact? How can I reach more people? How can I get my hands on more women, people humans in general? But I got a soft spot for my ladies. And how can I learn to manage my finances and create wealth, not only for myself, but for my team? Okay. My team, yes, I am their boss, but I also believe in every single one of them. They would not be on my team if I did not believe in them. I did not feel that they had a ripple effect in the world to expand my mission bigger than I can possibly imagine. So that's how I have to reframe my limiting beliefs that I've had about money when I was raised. And I feel like I got over most of them. I feel like some of them creep up every great once in a while when I'm on the cusp of like kind of moving on to the next level financially. And it's like an oh shit fear feeling. And then I'm like, it's fine. You got this. And it's always fine. And we figure it out. The next thing is creating a budget. This has been super, super helpful. Creating a budget to help you track your expenses, see where you're blowing money that's like useless and where you can be using that to prioritize your money based on what your values and your goals are. Okay. Very, very important. I talk very highly of the Dave Ramsey book. I believe it's a Total Money Makeover because that literally transformed my financial life. Probably 4 years ago, I want to say 5 years ago, when I read the book and I devoured it in a weekend and I literally sat down and I was not going to be settled. My mind was not going to be settled until I ran through all the exercises in the book myself to really see if I can make this shit happen. And I paid off all of my debts in less than a year. And it was like well over 6 figures of debts that I had incurred, just like starting the business and, divorce things and all kinds of other stuff. And so this was pivotal. Okay. Pivotal. So if you have a lot of debt, if you find that you are struggling paycheck to paycheck and you can't seem to get above water, get ahead or whatever, highly suggest you get that book. It's very, very, it's simple. If I can do it, anybody can fucking do it. Okay. Cause math is not my thing. And it was great. So I would say, creating a budget, you're going to feel more control of your finances and you're going to avoid overspending. Now, the thing is sticking to that goal and prioritizing that is the key. You can't just do it and then not do it, like plan it out and then be like, yeah, I really want Starbucks every single day. That's not in alignment with your goals. Okay. Next is investing in yourself. Super important. I have invested so much in my education, building certain skills that I need, personal development, which a lot of people think is like woo-woo or whatever, but I would not be here today doing what I do without investing in myself, not only in the personal development realm, but also my own coaches, right? Coaches for like my physical body, right? Somebody to hold me accountable to doing the things that I said that I wanted to do. This helps your earning potential. It keeps you focused and on track. And so when you can invest in yourself, your health, your well-being, this is only going to pay you off in so much more in your life. Okay. The future you will thank you. Take courses, workshops, books, all the things I've already talked about. Super important in investing in yourself. And then lastly, and we're going to tie up this podcast with a pretty little bow, is surrounding yourself with more positive Pollyannas. All right. Get yourself a Coach Glitter in your life and don't let her go. All right. But surrounding yourself with people who have a positive and abundant mindset around money instead of like, oh, I can't afford that. I'm broke. I can't do that. I will never be able to afford that. I could never pay for coaching. I could never drive that car. I could never buy a house. I'm always going to be broke. No. I have been there. I have hung out with those people. And I will tell you, they are like crabs in a bucket. Okay. I learned this from one of my coaches early on. One of my coaches was Bedros Keuilian. And he had this saying, I remember hearing him say this at one of our masterminds, was like crabs. When you hang out with crabs, imagine a bucket of crabs. The bottom crabs are pulling the top crabs to the bottom so they can get their asses to the top of the bucket. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sure he has a more eloquent way of explaining this, but you get the idea. Do not hang out with fucking crabs. Okay. That sounded terrible, but crabs are just going to pull you down. Okay. Cause they're worried about themselves rising to the top. So don't be a sheep. Don't be a crab. Pave your own way. Be a boss bitch and surround yourself with people who have a positive and abundant mindset, especially around money and goals and finances. And they will, hopefully have similar perspectives so you can achieve your goals. It's very important for you to be surrounded by like-minded folks. Seek out mentors, friends, whoever is going to provide you that support as you work towards those goals. So hopefully y'all liked this Boss Bitch's Guide to a Mindset Reset for an Abundantly Rich Life. Because y'all, this is how I live my life and it's fucking awesome. And I want awesomeness for you too. So hopefully this episode was valuable to you. If it was, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor, right? You know how I said, I come to you with a giving hand. I hope that I provided some insights for you. And my only single solitary ask is that you share this episode with one person, just one. Okay. Go to your whatever podcast platform you're listening on, go to the episode, hit copy, look around, find that link that says copy. And I want you to send this to your very best friend, or maybe even your enemy. I don't know, but send it to somebody who would appreciate what I have to say. And, I'll love you forever. So enjoy, and I will talk to you soon. Boss bitch. Thank you for listening to Boss Bitch Radio. It would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the podcast. If you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes, drop us a little comment. We will read those, and we offer prizes as a ethical bribe for you to leave us some great mojo and words of affirmation. That is my love language. And also, if you're over on Spotify, you can rate and review it there as well. All of this helps other women, other people, other folks see us, hear us, and learn from all of the amazing boss bitch tools and hacks, and hopefully get some LOLs. And if not, if anything, if you could share this with one person, I'd love you forever. And I know you are just here for my undying love. And last but not least, please, 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 please come find me over on Instagram so we can be buddies. We can be Insta fam over there. I am Diane Flores _IFBB_pro. Come say hi, drop me a DM, let me know what you think of the podcast. I'm always open for new suggestions and feedback as well. And I hope you listen again soon.